Well, welcome to Truth Bomb Podcast, where we're having a new conversation with female entrepreneurs about sinking into your cycle to have the success you want with less stress, more time freedom, and more financial freedom. Hi, my name is Chef Katrina.
I'm Heidi Muma.
And we're excited here today to really have a new conversation around what's stopping women from achieving the success they want. One of the things that we've really looked at over the last few years as business owners, as women that have been running businesses, is that we're struggling with burnout.
A lot.
We're struggling with time.
Yeah.
Right? We are really having a hard time understanding how we listen to our body. How do we build a business while taking care of our family, while having a job, while doing sports, while doing downtime? Like, how do we, like, while taking care and having a relationship, right? It feels very much like it's overwhelming. Like we can't get enough time in our day to do what we have to do to get things done. Does that sound familiar?
Very familiar. If you talk to so many women, they're like, I really need 36 to 40 hours every day.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just even saying that, it's like, because I remember, now it's like my kids are grown now, but I remember raising my kids and homeschooling my kids, running a business, running the household, running apartments and all the things. It's like, yeah, I could have used 40 hours in each day.
Yeah.
But it's just like, how could that have been done? And it's fascinating as we have dived into this, because it's like we all have these hang-ups or, things that culturally we're like aghast about. And we're just like, and so we started this journey, or like it's kind of into the journey, but we heard about this book called The Pussy. And even saying that word, some people are like, now I've said it so many times that I don't feel this anymore, but it's like, you just said that word.
Yeah, you said pussy.
You said pussy.
I remember the first time I heard it.
Yes.
Honestly, the first time I heard it, I was offended.
Yeah.
And I had another woman saying this. It wasn't a guy saying this to me. It was a woman saying this to me. She's like, well, are you talking to your pussy?
Yeah.
I thought she had lost her freaking marbles. I was like, what do you mean talk to my pussy? Like, that's
just weird.
That's so weird, and it feels icky, and it felt like uncomfortable.
Because that word has been used in a derogatory term.
Yeah, it truly has.
I mean, it's like it hasn't been used in the for what it actually is.
The anatomy of
the anatomy of the lady.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. It's an incredible book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it.
Yeah.
But then it's like, so it's like, it's like everything, even like as we, personal development, business development, you start one where and it just keeps leading down a path. And it's just like, and so now we're reading a book called In the Flow.
Yeah. Well, and this is such an interesting thing, though, because I have been teaching and training entrepreneurs for years. And I remember sitting in workshops with women that were, 5, 6, 7-figure, multi-successful women. And every time they would come in, the one thing they wanted to understand was time. How to better manage time. And they would get so frustrated and overwhelmed. And I mean, like, literally, their eyes would well up with tears because they would hear what they would have to sacrifice, what they would have to give up, what they needed to change. And all they can think about is feeling with their heart.
Yeah.
And they're thinking about, this is going to hurt my children. This is going to hurt my relationships. This is hard. Like, how do I get up an extra 45 minutes early? I need my rest. Like, there was always this over-sacrificing to have what we've been told was the only way you could build your business as a woman. It was really stuck in this 24-hour time frame that was hurting us more than helping us. And that really led to this conversation that we're having here today, which was women need a different approach to business. We can't keep following for our health, for our mental, for our overall well-being, and just for our relationships and our compassion. We have to have a different approach to business. And there's something that's been missing in our education that we've been getting.
Absolutely. And it's like, and I was like, I think reading this morning, looked back, and it's like, how do you actually gauge or determine success?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like everybody talks about that 6-7 figure income. Everybody talks about, but it's like, what, and then they talk about, well, what are you willing to sacrifice today so that you can have this tomorrow? And I look at that, I was like, you only have, and when I was raising my kids, I can't remember the numbers now, but you only have so many weekends with your kids until they're grown and out of the house.
Yeah.
You only have so many years. How many years are you going to sacrifice of their childhood or their teenagehood to before you can actually enjoy them?
You know me, I'm just going to go and research
Yes.
this, right? So I went 52 weeks because that would be like the time period, right?
Yep.
18 years of age,
Yep.
roughly, right? So you have a total of 936 weeks, which is nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, that is
Nothing.
like 900 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Technically, because by the time they hit 18, they're pretty much out the door anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really have less time than you think
Right.
with your kids.
Right.
And yet, as a woman in business, we're told to sacrifice our weekends, give up our time with them so we can have that time later. But we know in our research and what we understand is that child development, those first few years, those first 12 years are such a critical time to be in their lives.
It is. And it's like they even talk, they talk about, a lot of times they talk about giving up how much time do you spend watching TV? Well, as a mom raising kids, how much time do you ever get the TV? Seriously, people. I was like, now we were a one TV household. We had one TV in the entire house.
Right.
So there was I did send the kids to bed once a week. There was this one show I wanted to watch. It only lasted for about 2 months.
Yeah,
but
well.
I was like, go to bed. This is my time. I did that for a short period of time. But majority of the time, so when I sat down and watched TV, it was actually sitting down with my kids, looking and being involved in what they're watching.
Yeah. It still wasn't about you.
So it wasn't about me. It's like, it's what I want to be involved in my kids' lives.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm not going to sacrifice that for the 7-figure income. It's like, how is it? Because I do believe you can achieve whatever you want to achieve and not sacrifice everything to get there. Because if I don't have a relationship with my kids at the end of the day, then the 7-figure income wasn't worth it.
Yeah, and I know so many women that they're, they have different kids at different stages in their life, and they spent certain time frames where they were really active with their kids, and then they had times when they were building their business that they were totally disconnected.
Yeah.
So even though they made the money and can do more with their kids now, the kids resent the time that these women spent building this type of income.
They're like, I don't enjoy your business. Your business stole from me.
Yeah, stole time from me. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yep.
We want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to support and do more with our family and with our kids. And yet we're doing it at the risk of our own health.
Right.
And this is where I thought this was really interesting. So we talk about there's 2 clocks that women have.
Yep.
Right?
This is fascinating, ladies. Listen up, because I'd never even thought of this before until we started looking into this actually a week or 2 ago, really.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's always fascinating me. Like, I knew there was something else going on biologically with being a female that we didn't run on a 24-hour clock. I knew it.
I knew it, and I kept hearing you say it, and I was just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because the sun rises, the sun sets.
And that's all we know.
And that's all we know.
Right? And most of our training and everything that we've been given has been given in a hormonal syncrasy of the male. Mm-hmm. The men run hormonally on a 24-hour clock.
They do.
Everything in our society runs on a 24-hour clock. Right? So sunrise,
it's a very
sunset.
patriarchal society.
Right.
Get the impression?
It is, and it isn't, right? So there's like the sun rises, the sun sets. In nature itself, that is a cycle.
Right.
Right? But there is a second cycle to that, which is when the moon rises and the moon sets. So there is a day-long piece that goes with this. And what's interesting is the more we dive into this, the more we hear about like the female cycle being more of the lunar cycle.
Yeah.
It doesn't go from day to night. It goes through phases, right? Which is why they call that. That's why they kind of tie in women to the moon, because the moon actually goes through 4 phases. Mm-hmm. Which, if you look at how women cycle, we actually have 4 weeks. We have the 28 days. So we actually have 4 phases in our 28 days where we have more productivity. We have time where we need to choose rest over productivity. And when you know that these times are coming, you can actually schedule your life to be more fulfilling.
Yep.
And get what you need done. So in here, they said that we have the second clock, right? So we have a second clock as women once we start menstruating, right? So once we start hitting the time in our life when we get our period to when we stop having our period, this time period is when we have a second clock. It's the 28-day cycle. And so this has been an interesting conversation. So let's dive into this, because I know our listeners are really curious. Okay, they're like, well, you guys have covered a lot of interesting topics. Let's dive into this one. So there are 6 basically blockers that we face as women that is stopping us from embracing and acknowledging that second clock that is so vital to our health. It's so vital to our overall well-being, and it's so vital to the type of lifestyle that we want to have. So what's the first one that we're doing?
The first one is you're only watching that 1 clock. Yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of touched on this already, where it's like, if we're planning our time management, we're planning which quite frankly, you can't manage time, women. No. It's
a good thing. It's a good thing that we don't manage time, but we can create time.
We can create time. And they actually, what I love what she said about here is like, it's not, we can't manage time, but we can manage our energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when you're actually looking at your 28-day clock and you're looking at the flow of it, you're actually being able to manage your energy. Because there's times of the month, there's phases of the month where you have more energy, you have more creativity, you have more, just your emotions are in a different place.
Well, and it's so in tying into this, I heard like this reference, and I think this is really good. Like, she mentions one reference around a hockey puck, around like once you hit that impact, it's like on go until it starts to slow down and then it stops. Yeah. I heard the other analogy, and I love how we use like sports that are very masculine in nature for all of this, but it's like revving the engine of your car.
Yeah.
If you continuously rev the engine of your car and you don't ever brake, turn it off, let it cool down, you really do hit a boiling point, a breaking point, a burnout point, right? And what we're taught as women is that we need to continue doing more and more and more and more.
Well, if you continue to do it, you'll flood your engine and then it'll just die.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, so it's women, it's like if you continue to rev, same as an engine, you will just collapse.
Yeah.
And be like, done.
And you're wondering why we're getting more health issues, more like hormonal issues. Women are really dealing in society right now. There's a lot of hormonal issues women are dealing with.
A lot.
We're seeing a lot more women that are unable to get pregnant, and there's a whole resource around this one. But I love what this book talks about. So it's really there was a phrase that she said in here, something about when you tap only into your 24-hour clock, you're not recognizing that second cycle, that second clock that is so critical. Was there a phrase or sentence that was on there?
I also think it was like, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, but it was like, this is about your time versus your energy. And it's like the core problem with working longer hours is that time is a finite resource. Energy is a different story.
Energy can be replenished.
Energy is renewable.
Yeah. So when we tap into learning how to run a renewable energy, when we understand that as women, that's really our place to play, that we understand that energy is our playground.
It is. And I love it. It's like, energy is something you can even renew in a short period of time.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to, I mean, we all go rest at night. You do need several hours of sleep at night, but even during the day, you're like, oh, it's like, I need this downtime. Go sit down, have a cup of tea. Have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we've got a member in our community for Truth Mom Academy. She's a mother of 3.
Yes.
Right. She does a lot of stuff. She runs and she helps us out in our business. She helps other companies in their business too. She's an integrator. Yep. She's amazing at what she does. And one of the things that we started talking about and helping her with this last year was taking a nap.
Yeah.
Like, she discovered the power of that nap, that 15, 20-minute nap that recharges her to then be more engaged and productive with her children. Yeah. And she had that conversation with her kids. Like, this is mommy's downtime. This is where I need to be with myself. And they actually respect that.
Yeah, they do.
And they're learning that.
Especially when they understand it.
Yeah, and as kids, right? And these are 3 female children she's raising. She's actually shown an example that this is okay.
Right.
And I think that's the breaking of that first cycle. Is like showing not only yourself, but you want to be a role model for your girls.
Absolutely.
Showing them that this is part of our natural cycle.
And I know for me, when I was homeschooling my kids, it was like recognizing that energy and when that energy flowed or not. Because I read a lot with my kids, a lot. And it was like, and I realized I could not read after lunch. And I was like, because if I read after lunch, mommy went to sleep. Sometimes it was in the middle of a sentence, mommy went to sleep. And it was just like, So
that's pretty good.
It was fantastic. My kids were fascinated. They were like, "Get her reading, get her reading. She'll be out."
Yeah, we can do our own thing.
It was great. But
okay, so
anyhow,
we know the first block is really not paying attention to that second clock that we have as women.
Yep.
And this is something we're even going through right now. Like we're in the play of putting this into practice more so. We recognize that we've been looking for this information, but this information in science is like so freaking relatively new. We're talking within like the last 10 years or less.
Well, and I love this second one because I think it's our society perpetuates it.
Oh, what's the second one?
So
second thing that's stopping
blocker
us.
number 2, you're living in perpetual productivity.
Oh.
Perpetual.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's like if you're not doing like a money-making activity, you're not doing what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
If you're not in production mode, if you're not in sales mode, if you're not in a money-making mode, you're not productive. You're being lazy.
Yeah, and laziness is perceived as a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So they talk about how we are in this 4-phase cycle, this natural cycle of creation, right? Which is the initiation, it's the seeding process. Right? We always talk about this in business. There's a process where you plant the seeds, right? There's the process of then growth. That's like where things are happening underground. That's why I always say in business, the first 12 to 18 months are usually the part where you feel like you're doing the most work.
Yeah.
With the least amount of results. Right?
True story.
Visual results that you're looking for. But that 12 to 18 months is really a time period where as a new business you're starting to learn more about yourself. And so we have this, we have the initiation phase, we have the growth phase, which is when things start to sprout, we have the completion phase, when we harvest things, right, and then we have the rest phase.
And we spend so much of our time growth and completion.
We don't even recognize the initial seeding phase. We want to go from I have an idea to marketing. So we jump from initiation to completion. Yeah. We don't even want to go through the growth phase.
We don't want to have that time where the seed is literally sitting in the ground just germinating. Yeah. It's germinating. Yeah. And it's just like, I love that. Actually, that's beautiful because I think about what we do here inside Truth Bomb Academy. And that's when we start the process, like we start with your idea.
It's the seed.
And it's literally germinating it before we get to marketing.
Yeah. Because we want to make sure that you completely understand what it is you're marketing and how marketing works. Because inside of there's the growth piece, right? I have this idea. I'm going to plant the seed. I'm going to nurture it. I'm going to love on it. I'm going to understand it. I'm going to make sure I communicate it effectively. I know who I'm talking to about why I'm sharing this product, my coaching course, my creation course, whatever it is you're doing, right? Yep. You've got to nurture that time period. You do. You're going to have beta testers come in. You're going to have people trying out different things. You're going to learn about your finances inside of here. We're going to show you how to structure that. That was really, really important so that you can harvest your business. And then once you learn how to harvest, which I think is really interesting for women, is that every 28 days we also have a rest phase. And it actually is built into our cycle to take those days or day to rest. Yeah. And that is something we've been ignoring because we've been in such a productivity phase that we haven't actually looked at, okay, I need to just be with myself. I need to socialize, right? I need to grow. I need to connect. I need to share with what I know. I need to then choose this time period because this is where I'm at in my 28-day cycle. Right. This is the time I can make my offers. I can stand on stage. I can ask for more money. I can ask for a pay raise. I can do all that one. And then there's 2 days where I just need to just be myself. I just need to rest again so that I can have that fertile space to plant the next seed and go through my next 28 days.
I love that.
Right.
Let's move on to blocker number 3. You believe being busy is a status symbol or a badge of honor?
It is.
It is.
Not.
How often when somebody asks you, how's your week going? What do we answer?
It was busy.
It was busy. It's so busy. I have so much on my plate. I don't have enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
It is the most popular answer to whenever you ask somebody how they're doing.
And it's perception of mine,
It's a badge of honor.
It is a badge of honor. I need to look busy. I need to be doing something.
Because if you're not busy, you're not making money. You're not productive. You're not an asset to society.
Which is such a BS for women because we have different activities and we have activities that produce income and then we have activities that seem to be non-income producing. Like cleaning the house is not an income producing activity. No. But it's part of our phase for resetting ourselves.
Changing a baby's diaper and teaching them manners is not an income producing activity.
No, it's not. But it's something that it's a non-payment skill set, but it's such a critical part of our society and our environment. So it's the unpaid work that makes the world work. And I've heard that saying before. And so what women really need to look at is when the unpaid work is just as critical to be in that place, to know how to then better and do that paid work and get paid what you're worth.
And some of that unpaid work is taking rest so that you can do the paid work, so that you can continue to do the unpaid work that is necessary to do, because just because it's unpaid doesn't mean you're not busy.
Right.
You're still busy. You could be busier with unpaid work than actually paid work. And yes, it is moving your life forward. It's moving your children's lives forward. It's keeping your house clean.
True.
But also that rest period is necessary so that you're actually effective in what you're doing, instead of, and it helps. It's like your emotions and your wanting to be there instead of it being drudgery.
Yeah. And that's the hard part.
And yeah, it is. It's like sometimes I feel like I've heard women say, you know, it's about, you can't be it's like if you're happy in what you're doing, or if you're having so much fun and enjoyment, then you obviously are not doing enough.
Yeah. If you're taking rest and you're taking naps, then you are lazy. And that's so not true for women. That's
so just counterproductive.
It is.
To
the 28-day cycle.
To actually being able to continue. I mean, how much wouldn't it be so much better? It's like I will honestly say I fully enjoyed raising my kids. Absolutely. And homeschooling them. Now, were there days that I wanted to send them all to school? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like when you fully, it was the best decision and the most joy I've ever had was raising my kids. And it was like, and so it's like you don't want to raise your kids and be like, who are they?
Yeah.
And where did that time go? Because you spent it all.
900 days is nothing.
It's nothing, but it seems like an eternity when you're in it, but it's nothing. And when they're gone, it's like you can't get that time back.
Yeah, you can't. You really can't. So
women,
really...
it's like acknowledging what this is, and acknowledging that just saying you're busy is not a badge of honor.
It's really tapping back into your feelings. So if somebody say, "How do you feel today?" and you say, I'm busy.
All right, this one taps into this.
Okay.
So the blocker number 4 is you believe success requires suffering. And that's what we were just talking about.
God,
it's like successfully raising your kids, successfully building a business, successfully building a community. If you're suffering, if you're doing that based on how much you're sacrificing, is it really worth it?
No. It breaks my heart. Honestly, the more women I talk to that are building really successful businesses, and predominantly a lot of the women I've talked to are either been in the network marketing industry or have been physical brick and mortar business owners. Yes. Is really who I've talked with the most, to be totally honest and straight with you all. But it's really interesting how much they are struggling and how much their kids feel like their parents aren't home, but they're saying, I'm doing this for you. But I promise you, the child doesn't feel that.
No.
Especially when you're gone, you're traveling and everything else. So what I like about what we're hearing is that you don't have to suffer when you tap into the 28-day cycle. You don't have to give up. You don't have to be in this productivity phase all the time. It's actually starting to learn how women cycle. And the crazy thing is the men have been wanting us women to teach women how to do this. But the science of it, of understanding our own bodies, hasn't really existed because we've been more focused on studying a consistent human being that runs on a 24-hour clock, which is the men, the hormonal 24-hour cycle. But the women, because we're such a complex creature, and we hear this, but that complexity, once we unlock it for ourselves, as understanding our 28-day cycle and where we're at and learning how to plan that month of productivity, we actually can get more done by taking things off our to-do list and letting those activities be where they need to be in our monthly 28-day schedule.
Well, not only do we get more done, what you do get done is done more effectively because it's in a time period where you are more...
At your highest energy.
You're at your highest energy, your highest creativity. And it's like, and so when you start to recognize that those time periods, magic happens.
I'm telling you,
Serious
it's like manifestation happens faster.
You're not sacrificing, you're flourishing.
Yeah.
You're not
I
suffering, you are creating beauty.
Yeah.
In the
and
world
it's not
around
even
you.
thriving. It's not even the word thriving.
It's not
so many
thriving.
It's not. You're literally growing, nurturing, blossoming.
You're in bliss.
You're in bliss.
You're in bliss.
And I think more women need to be in their bliss, to be honest. All right, well, so
and I
what's
love the next one falls into this.
Oh, yeah.
Blocker number 5. You expect to feel the same every day. Women,
we don't.
You're not a man. You have when they talk about oh she's just being emotional. No, it's like our hormones fluctuate throughout the month. And I think it's like when we get emotional, it's because we don't don't have the words for what's really going on.
Yeah, we don't understand our own body.
And it comes out in strong emotions, but really if we understood and had the words for what's really going on, it wouldn't come across to a guy as all emotions.
Well, and because guys run on a 24-hour clock, their high energy period is in the morning.
Yeah.
Their high, concentration of relationships and engaging with people is in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then their evenings is their wind down.
Yes.
So they literally run on a 24-hour clock like that. And we were talking to our business mentors the other day, and they're like, yeah, that sounds familiar. That's exactly how we run.
Yeah.
That's why things like the miracle morning and all that work more and better for men.
Yep.
Because what women haven't figured out yet is that you need to tap into your inner cycle.
Yeah.
Your 28-day cycle. Start tracking your energy flow.
Yeah.
And find out what that looks like for you. So you'll have to understand that you are not going to be the same emotional person that you were yesterday.
Right.
You might fluctuate. You might have a more control over your emotion. You might have less control over your emotion. But that's understanding that 28-day cycle that we're in and knowing when to contract, step away from everybody, knowing when to step out and be social, knowing when to the best time for creating of your business, and really living in that world.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful. And the last thing we're going to talk about, we touched about this a little bit earlier, is about the hormonal in blocker number 6. There's a hormonal imbalance going on in our society. And it's like, and it also taking artificial conception, the birth control
taking
pill
birth control
does affect all of this.
The studies on this that are coming out now are so shocking. Now,
they really
mind you, birth control was thought of as the most beautiful, brilliant thing. And I totally can understand from a female back in the 1960s when it first came out, right? I believe that's when it happened. In the 1960s, the birth control pill was released to women as a way to block our ability to produce children.
Right.
And so now we could enter the workforce without having...
You can control how many children you have. You can control when you have children.
Not that we didn't have control before. We just didn't even know our flow to be able to have that conversation.
Education about your cycle would have
been super helpful.
Would have been instead of artificial hormones that you're adding to your body. That if you believe there's no effect, permanent or long-term effect of them, you're fooling yourself.
No, but the funny thing is, not the funny thing, but the interesting thing is that I've started watching videos and documentaries with women, and they're actually saying that birth control suppresses the emotion and the hormonal cycle that we need to be tapping into.
Right.
So when we're on birth control as women, we really are, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be brutally blunt, we are dead from the neck down.
Yeah, and it's also, and I love that. I think we were reading, I don't remember which book it was, but when they talk about like that bleed set, that like when they give you the placebo and you actually bleed. Yes, you are bleeding, but you're not having your normal natural period.
Yeah, they figured out that it would freak women out if they didn't bleed.
Yeah, it would freak them out, so they gave you this bleed period, but it is still your whole cycle is like you're in menopause. You don't have the cycle.
Yeah.
If you're on artificial hormones.
Yeah. It's actually we're discovering it's not the best thing for women to be on all these artificial and synthetic hormones. And that's the studies that are just coming out because women are having so many side effects from this.
Yes. And we are specifically talking about the artificial hormones in birth control. Like there is a whole different study going on like for bioidentical hormones for hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
It's two different conversations, but the birth control pill specifically is messing women up.
Yeah, I actually was listening to an interview, and the lady said, I wanted to be my most peak productive, I wanted to step into the corporate world. I wanted to have everything that in the corporate. And being on the pill allowed me to be at that high productivity level because you were in that 24-hour clock. You completely suppressed your 28-day cycle.
Yeah.
Right? And then suppressing that 28-day clock, that is such a powerful gift for women. It's actually, women are now like, when they get off the pill, it's taking them longer to get back into that cycle.
Yeah.
But there is the way to heal that. There is a way to come back from that.
For sure.
And I think that's one of the most interesting things around this is that, that 28-day clock that we have access to as women, I think has been so underrated. And also, I think as women, we don't understand it ourselves. I mean, this, like I said, the science is so new, and I'm fascinated by it because I knew something was off.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the science or the proof because women aren't being studied. Because we're more complex creatures. But that complexity is a double-edged sword. It's because if we don't understand ourselves as a woman, and we keep maintaining this 24-hour clock without recognizing our 28-day cycle or 28-day clock, we're doing more harm to ourselves, our families, our society, until we can tap back into that and really understand how powerful that is. And the crazy thing is that 28-day clock has a time period, right? It doesn't kick in until you're 10, 12, 14, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you have that childhood where you're on a 24-hour clock, like life is good, life is bliss, right? But we're not teaching our young women that to tap into that 28-day cycle and the beauty of it and how to actually use that and even manage school and life and relationships, right? Because they're still new at it.
Right.
And we're still in this new conversation. But then what's interesting is that we hit a point as women right around, they say, our 50s, where we stop having that beautiful, gorgeous gift. And now we're kicked back into the 28-day cycle.
Yeah.
Or the 24-hour cycle, right? So now we have that back into that 24-hour cycle, which is typically where you see most women have success, is in their later years, just like the men do also. Because with age comes wisdom, right? So they say. But I really, I don't want to have to wait or have that. I want to know and understand how to better be a woman and tap into that cycle so that I feel more whole.
Right.
I feel heard. I understand the emotions that I'm going through because trying to communicate what I don't understand, no wonder why we are at crossroads with, the males in the world.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have the language, like you said earlier, to understand what we're saying, this becomes a very hard conversation for women to have.
It is.
And then we're embarrassed to talk about things like the pussy and our period and our hormonal cycle because it's been so minimized. But it's critical to us. And I think that's the biggest difference. So to wrap up today's episode in our podcast, Truth Bomb, we're basically inviting you to, if you enjoyed this podcast, definitely give us a 5. Give us a 5 for this one. If you're following us on our YouTube channel, listening into our podcast, absolutely subscribe. Give a thumbs up. We love when that happens. But we're going to continue diving into this conversation around what it is to be a female in business. And if you want to learn more about Truth Bomb Academy, which is, that is the first female business academy that talks this. So we're bringing the science, the business, the manifestation, the sound, the money, all of it together for the first time so that you as a female can really embrace time and financial freedom in a way you've never experienced it before. It's time.
It's time.
All right. So with that, thank you for joining us here on Truth Bomb Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye, everyone.